Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our Q&A webinar on how to apply to the University of Jyväskylä. So first, there will be me, Krista Rannikko. I'm representing our student admissions, and I have here my colleagues Yelisaveta and Elisa from International Services talking about tuition fees, financial matters, and residence permits, for example. And today we are talking about how to apply to our international master's degree programs. On Monday, we had a webinar regarding the bachelor's programs, and both of these webinars will be recorded and the other one was recorded and will be published on our website so you can have another look later on. Here's some important guidelines. So first of all, today we are using the Q&A function, the box in the bottom of your screen. And please use that to ask any questions. You can ask them during the webinar, but also in the end we have a separate section for your questions. And like I mentioned, this webinar will be recorded and published on our website later this week. And please don't mention any personal information and details in the Q&A section or function. If you have any personal and more individual questions, you can contact us at admissions@jyu.fi. This webinar is an hour-long webinar, and here you can see the contents. So first, we will tell you some information, then we'll go through frequently asked questions and their answers, and then you have time and space to ask your questions. And like I mentioned, you can already start writing them in the Q&A box. First, a little bit about our beautiful campus. So first of all, University of Jyväskylä is located in Finland. We call it the center of Finland, but geographically it's not in the middle. Jyväskylä is a lovely city close to nature, and we have 4 different campus areas, all of which are close to each other. These minutes are by foot, so walking distances, and with bike you can go even faster. Little bit more about our student services. So we offer student housing, student healthcare, Finnish language courses. Applying we don't require to have any Finnish language skills, but to kind of settle in nicely in Finland, it's always nice to know the local language. So we also offer you language courses. We have many budget-friendly student restaurants on campus, different kind of hobby possibilities and opportunities, sports opportunities, and a local friendship program that is also a nice way to meet new people and especially local people. I would also like to mention the goodies, which are university personnel and staff who are trained to be student well-being advisors. So these are just a few services that I wanted to mention to you today. There are others as well. And in the picture, you can see our sports sciences building and a little bit of that park. park type of campus that we have here with the green areas and all the bikes. Many people cycle in Jyväskylä. So we are part of a joint application. This means that you can apply up to 6 different programs with one application. These 6 programs can be programs of University of Jyväskylä or other universities who are part of the joint application in January. So the application period starts on the 7th of January and closes on the 21st of January. Please know that every program has their own individual requirements and especially attachment requirements. So you have to check every program's admission criteria individually and check that you have gathered all the required attachments to each program. On the application form, you will also fill in information program by program. So you will have to upload same attachments to multiple times because if you apply to different programs. Okay, and the application form is on a separate website. It's called studyinfo.fi. If you go there now, you won't see the application form, but it will be there on 7th of January at 8 a.m. UTC +2 time zone. Here you can see our programs, 6 different faculties, 20 different master's degree programs, and those marked with the little asterisk, the star, those are offered by 2 different faculties. Here you can also see our new programs. From the Humanities and Social Sciences faculty, we have a new program called Game Studies. And Mathematics and there's a typo. It's Mathematics and Natural Sciences. They offer a new program called Aquatic Sciences and Evolutionary Biology. Here is the timetable. So, like mentioned, the application round opens on 7th of January, closes on the 21st of January, and it's important that if you want to apply to our programs, you need to submit your application by 21st of January at 3 p.m. UTC +2 time zone. If not, we won't have your application and we don't accept any late applications either. However, after this deadline, you still have another week time to submit any missing attachments. You can upload attachments between 7th and 21st of January already, and it is recommended. But if you haven't been able to gather all your attachments, for example, or you are working on one, still you have time until 28th. But again, the deadline is strict. After 3 p.m., we do not accept any attachments. This is important. Then some of the programs organize online interviews, and these will be organized between the beginning and middle of March. You will know whether or not your program has an interview by reading the admission criteria. Then, by 1st of April, applicants are informed of their results. If you get admitted and you, this applies to most of the applicants. If you get admitted, you will have to submit certified documents to us by 16th of July. That said, when you apply in January, you don't have to provide attested documents, meaning certified documents. You can scan or upload regular copies of your degree certificate, transcript, and so on. And then the studies begin at the end of August. So now, before the application period starts, you should get to know our programs and decide which program or programs you apply for. And maybe you have already decided. And then read the program description, program info well, so that you know where you are applying to and what to expect. But also read the admission criteria very well, because the admission criteria holds all the necessary information to know what documents are required, are you eligible to apply, and how to prove your English language proficiency, just to mention a few. Then we also have listed application instructions on our website. Read those through carefully as well and take any required tests and prepare the documents. Some programs require tests like GRE, GMAT, some don't, and you might need to take a language test depending on your situation and the program you apply for. But like mentioned, check the admission criteria to learn more and to know your individual situation. And so more information you can find by searching or typing www.jyu.fi/apply or through these QR codes. There's a QR code through which you can go to our How to Apply page and also to the list of our available programs. Okay, so next, the application process itself. So you fill in the application, you submit it, and then some of you will be required to pay an application fee of 100 euros. Whether or not you are required to pay, there will be another QR code through which you can find more information about that. So then you upload all the attachments to your application. And again, the deadline for that is 28th of January at 3 p.m. And please note that attachments sent via email directly to us won't be accepted. So you have to upload them to your application form on studyinfo.fi. And you can upload scanned copies. Paper documents are not required at this stage. And like mentioned earlier, documents don't have to be officially certified at this stage. After the application period ends, please check your email regularly to see if you have received any email regarding the interview. For those who have an interview organized by the program, or those programs who organize an interview. And the decisions will be published by 1st April, and they will follow the admission criteria. So that's the admission criteria is the basis for evaluation. Then next, we have information on tuition fees, early bird and scholarship.
Yes, hello everyone again. I am Elisa Pratesi from the International Office of the University of Jyväskylä, and together with my colleague, we are responsible for support services of international students, including tuition fee and scholarship related matters. I think, Krista, you can just click through the slides so that the text appears. It's easier. Yes, thank you very much. So let's start with tuition fees, early bird, and scholarships. So first of all, students who are not citizens of a European Union country or of a country belonging to the European Economic Area, so that EEA there, are required to pay tuition fees. There are some types of Finnish residence permits that may exempt you from paying tuition fees. A comprehensive list of these residence permits, some are mentioned here, can be found on our website. But for example, a permanent residence permit, so a P type, temporary protection, or some A type permits might also exempt you from tuition fee liability. But please check our website for more detailed information about that. There are no university level scholarships for the first year of studies. However, we do want to reward students' commitment to JYU with an early bird discount, which is 1,500 euros, which is offered to those students who accept their study place within 14 days after receiving their letter of admission. So once you're notified about your admission, you have 14 days to accept the place in order to benefit from the early bird discount. The tuition fee does not need to be paid within these 14 days. The deadline for the payment of the tuition fee for the first full academic year is the 31st of July. So you can accept the study place within the 14 days, and that is sufficient to entitle you to the discount and then pay by the deadline of the end of July. After the first year of studies, students who make sufficient academic progress are rewarded by the possibility to apply for the JYU scholarship for continuing students. And they can apply provided they meet the scholarship criteria. And as I mentioned, one of these criteria is making sufficient academic progress during their first year. The amount of the scholarship is determined by the full amount of the tuition fee. So below you can see in this table that depending on the tuition fee amount, so for example, 10,000 euros, the scholarship is a certain sum in euros. So for 10,000, it would be 3,000 and so forth. You can see all the different amounts there. And these are the different amounts of tuition fees of all of our programs. Yes, we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So in addition to tuition fees, it's good that even at this stage, you consider all other relevant financial matters and expenses that you might have to prepare for at the start of your studies or before starting your studies. In general, the estimated monthly expenses for a student living here in Jyväskylä and studying at JYU is about 800 to 900 euros, depending on your lifestyle and also how many initial expenses you might have. Rent in a shared student accommodation, which means one bedroom, private, in a shared apartment where you share common areas with others, ranges between 280 to 420 for newer buildings. And then if you want a studio, so a private, an entire apartment private for you, a one-room apartment, it's 350 to 650 euros, depending on how new the building is and the location of the building. Usually, if you stay in student housing, so I think Krista at the beginning of this presentation mentioned our student housing providers, Soihtu and Koas. So if you stay at these, you usually have electricity and water included in your bill. Another quite good student benefit for our students is a subsidized lunch in student restaurants. So your meal will cost you a little under 3 euros. So 2.95 € in all student restaurants, not only in Jyväskylä, but all over the country. For mobile internet, you should account for about 20 to 30 euros a month, depending on your sort of phone usage habits and your phone plan. A bus pass right now costs about 42 euros for students, so with a student discount. And likewise, with a student discount, you can access all of the services of the university sports. So we have UMove, so our academic sports services, which include gym access, a variety of sports courses, and other services for 65 euros for the entire academic year. So it's quite convenient for students. But if you're a student coming from outside the EU or the EEA area or Switzerland, actually, you should be ready to prove when applying for your residence permit that you have the necessary funds to cover your living expenses. So right now, the amount required is a minimum of 800 euros a month. And in total, this in a year adds up to 9,600. And this amount should be in your own bank account for your use by April 2026 in order for you to be able to present it together with bank statements from the previous 6 months to Migri when you're applying for your residence permit. And this is to prove the origin of funds. So they need to be able to check where your funds come from and that they have been there for, or what your bank statement is for the previous 6 months. But I think we can, at this point, move to the next slide, and I will give the floor to my colleague, Elisaveta, who will also tell you a bit more about residence permits.
Hello, everyone. So applying for the residence permit is quite an important matter, and we cannot emphasize it more. So first of all, about the terms, residence permit is the same as student visa. Just in Finland, we don't really use the term student visa because residence permit, it comes as a separate plastic card. It's not a sticker which is attached inside of your passport. So that's more. This is the term you will use and you will see in all the university and migration websites. Another important thing that applying for the residence permit only concerns citizens coming from outside of the European Union or the European Economic Area. Please be ready to start this process immediately after you receive your letter of admission. Every year we receive a lot of questions from very stressed and concerned students who are very worried that they will not be able to arrive on time. And this is why we cannot again emphasize it more. Please be ready to complete all the necessary steps when you receive your admission notification at the beginning of April, because the process is quite long and it can take up to 5 or even 6 months, depending on your location, depending on when you're applying from. So especially if you are from the countries such as Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Ghana, or Nigeria, it's very important for you that you research what kind of documentation you will need and also how the process goes specific to your country well in advance. But in a nutshell, you would need to book an identification appointment. However, in some cases, you might need to travel to a different country for identification. For example, for students from Sri Lanka, that would be India. For students from Pakistan, that would be Qatar. So you might also need to apply for an entry visa to go to that country and complete the identification process. Then it comes to the residence permit application itself. The application is quite straightforward. You just simply go to the online service Enter Finland. You fill in the required information and you also supplement it with the attachments such as valid passports. So please make sure that at the moment when you apply, you have a passport which is valid for at least 1 year, because otherwise your residence permit will be given for much shorter time than otherwise you would get it. Normally it's given for the whole duration of your studies in Finland. So for master students, that would be 2 years. Then you would need to attach your letter of admission. This is a document that you will receive from us if you're admitted. And then you would also need to provide your bank statements for the last 6 months. Please note that it has to be from your own personal account. So the account which is in your name and in your exclusive use. It cannot be any sponsorship agreement. It cannot be any other way. The money has to be in your account the moment you apply. The only exceptions is that if you move, for example, together with your spouse, then you could present a joint account because you both are applying for the residence permit and you both would be using funds in Finland. So you would need to have at least 9,600 euro in your own bank account to prove that you're able to afford the living expenses. Just like my colleague Elisa mentioned, in Finland, the requirement is that you have at least 800 euro per each month. And depending on whether you pay the tuition fee or not at the moment of your application, you will either present a proof that you have already paid it to JYU, or in addition to having those 9,600 euro in your account, you would also need to have money to cover the tuition fee for the first year. We recommend applying for the residence permit while your admission is still conditional, before you have paid the tuition fee to speed up the process. Finally, you would need a valid health insurance. So for degree students, those who stay in Finland for 2 years, the minimum coverage will be for 40,000 euro, and you can check the list of accepted providers in the Finnish immigration website called Migria. If you're planning to move to Finland with your family, that is possible, and you're allowed to submit the residence permit application at the same time. However, please note 2 things: that during the summer months, immigration services, they are trying to prioritize student applications, which means that if you have applied with your spouse, for example, later than April, your spouse probably would likely need to wait until August or September for the application to be processed, and your application will be processed during the summertime. And the second important thing is that if you're moving to Finland with your family, you would need to have more money in your account to support you and your family during your study time. So, for example, if you're moving with your spouse and an underage child, you would need to have at least 2,020 euro for each month. So that would be more than 24,000 euro in your own personal bank account, again, when applying for the residence permit. But that's all for the residence permit side, so we can move on to the next topic.
Okay, great. Thank you, Elisabetta and Elisa. Next, let's see if we can, we will go through some frequently asked questions and their answers. And thank you for asking all these questions already in the Q&A function. That's the Q&A box. And let's avoid the chat function today. Okay, so first of all, is there an application fee? Yes, there is. And if you are a citizen to some other than European Union country, EEA country, or Switzerland, you will have to pay 100 euros. And to verify whether or not you need to pay this fee, you can go see more information on Study Info website through this QR code. The application fee is not organized by the University of Jyväskylä, so we cannot affect it in any way. It is important to note that you have 7 days time to pay this fee, and if you don't pay this in time, your application will be cancelled. But like I said, more information on the website. There's very detailed Q&A section there. I recommend to read it. And I am sorry to say that it is not possible to waiver the application fee. However, please know that with this 100 euros, you can apply up to 6 programs in this application period in January. Just a moment. Yes. Okay. Does paying the application fee mean that I am automatically offered a study place? Unfortunately, it doesn't. It doesn't guarantee that you will be admitted. It's just a fee regarding the application process. It gives you the right to apply. And if you get admitted, can you get feedback? I'm sorry to say that you don't. And like I said, it just gives you the right to apply to our programs. Then in January, you might notice that there's a possibility to have a My Study account when you apply. However, please know that you don't need this. And you can apply without it. This My Study account is more for applicants with Finnish online banking credentials. Okay, how can I go back to my application after sending it? So you can reaccess your application through a link that you will have been sent to your email that you have stated as your email address on the application. There will be a link, and through that link you can go back to your application and change documents, change even programs until the 21st of January. Can I use AI tools to help write my application? The short answer is yes, you can if you mention that you have used them. However, some of the programs require that you don't. This is mentioned in the admission criteria. And also, please note that the evaluators are really interested in your own voice, your own opinions, experience, and ideas. So those applications where the evaluators can really see you in your answers, they will score better scores. Or let's say that those that are heavily AI influence will score more poorly or poorly. Anyways, you get my point. In this time when we use so much AI, we really want to see the person behind the application and person behind the text. So if you use AI, just mention and indicate which model you have used and in what way you have used it. And not mention this could lead to you not qualifying for admission. Then about GRE and GMAT test results. So this is for applicants and people who are interested in applying to business-related programs. And this only applies to these following 3 programs: international business and entrepreneurship, banking and international finance, digital marketing, and corporate communication. And so these programs, and if you have not completed or won't complete a higher education degree of a certain scale, of certain score, 3 or more, and if the country where the degree is completed is not in the European Union, EEA, or Switzerland. So if the degree is awarded in an institution that is other than these countries, you will need to provide a GRE or GMAT test to apply to these 3 programs. And please note that you can also use the GRE and GMAT test result to prove your English language proficiency. And it is important to send the documents related to these tests in time. Then, about proving the English language skills. Can I prove my English language proficiency with an IELTS test, PTE, or 12 test? It depends on the program. Some of the programs accept different English tests. Duolingo tests are not accepted in any program, but some of the programs do not accept these language tests. Some of the programs use another screening process called ACRES. It's organized by the University of Jyväskylä. It's free of charge and it's part of the admission process. So you don't have to do anything regarding this before the application period. And if so in the first stage, you fill in the application and send us upload all the documents to your application. Then we evaluate your application technically and see if it fulfills all the requirements. And then in the next stage, you might get an invitation to do this ACRES test. But also more information about it on our website through this QR code. And here is an example of this website where we have a lot of instructions on proving English language skills. Then, next question. My previous degree is still unfinished. Can I apply? Yes, you can apply. So, if you are a final year student, and the degree is still incomplete, you can apply, but there are two conditions. You can get conditionally admitted, and these conditions are that you graduate and you submit final transcript of records and degree certificate or temporary degree certificate by 16th of July. And these documents has to reach us by the deadline, but more about that if you get admitted. We will also publish more information about this submitting the final documents later this week. And if you apply with unfinished degree, it is important to notice that even if you get a conditional admission offer, but you don't graduate or you don't provide these final documents in time, your admission will be cancelled. And on the application form, there will be a place where you indicate whether or not your degree is finished or unfinished. And please note that in some cases, a unfinished degree cannot serve as proof of English skills, and there's a QR code to the web page where you can read more about proving your English language skills. Then more about the certified copies. I saw some questions regarding this in the Q&A box. And here I hope we can answer your questions now. So the regular scanned copies and regular electronic documents are sufficient in the application phase in January. And like mentioned before, you can only submit them by uploading them to the application form. And we will publish more information about submitting certified copies later this week. And on that website that will be published, there will be an explanation and guideline how to know whether or not you will have to provide these certified copies and how to do it. There are some country-specific requirements and guidelines, so please follow those. And yes, that deadline is in July, so you will have a lot of time to get those documents. Yeah, and a provisional degree certificate can be accepted in the place of a permanent one under certain conditions. More about that in the instructions that will be published later this week as well. And yeah, I would still want to mention that there are two ways to provide these documents. You can, this depends a little bit on the country, but yeah, there are oftentimes two options: electronic delivery or paper delivery. And also, if you get admitted, your admission letter will note whether or not you need to provide attested copies. Then next one, I already hold a master's degree. Can I still be admitted? Yes, you can, if it's not forbidden in the admission criteria of the program you apply for. However, we also recommend that if you have already acquired a master's degree, that you then next apply to a doctoral degree, doctoral studies, and we also offer those at the University of Jyväskylä. And regarding the admission criteria, here is a screenshot of our how to apply website, and there is a section called what are the specific admission criteria, and there you can get a very easy access to program specific web links and websites where you find these admission criteria. Then Elisa, please.
Yes.
Thank
So this is actually, some of these questions are also being currently asked in the Q&A, so it's good for all of those who asked questions about tuition fees and scholarships and early birds to listen to these FAQs as well. So first question, am I required to pay tuition fees? As Krista mentioned, I think at some point in the beginning, that there are no tuition fee waivers if you are liable to pay tuition fees. And those who are not EU, EEA, or Swiss citizens must pay tuition fees for programs, both bachelor and master's degree programs that are taught in English at our university. As I mentioned earlier, there are some residence permits that may exempt you from the liability of paying tuition fees. And there is a list on our website. You can see our link here. And also just by Googling tuition fees and scholarship JYU, you will find the right page. So I recommend you check that website so that you can find the most accurate information directly from there. If you are a citizen of any state of the European Union or of the European Economic Area or Switzerland, you do not have to pay tuition fees. So the part of the presentation that concerned tuition fees does not concern you in this case. For those who are liable to pay, the deadline for the payment is once again 31st of July for the first academic year. And then if we move to the next slide, I think there are still some questions, some FAQs about the early bird discount. So if you can, yes, thank you. So question number one is, do I have to pay the tuition fee to benefit from the early bird discount? So do I have to pay it in the 14 days? The answer is no. So to take advantage of the early bird discount, which was the 1,500 euros for your first year's tuition fee, you just have to accept your study place. You do not need to pay within the 2-week period. You accept the study place following the instructions that are provided by the university together with your letter of admission, and then you have time until the 31st of July to make the actual payment. So what determines whether you can benefit from the early bird discount is when you are accepting the study place. Then the other question, which is something that was asked in the Q&A as well, is what kind of scholarships do we offer and how you can apply for them. So the first academic year has the early bird discount and no other scholarships available. But for the second year, all students who are tuition fee liable, so if you're liable to pay tuition fees, you can apply for a JYU scholarship, which covers part of the second year tuition fee. You will be able to apply for this in the spring semester of your first academic year. So let's say you start in September 2026, you will be able to apply for this in the spring 2027, because it is for your second year of studies. To receive the scholarship, requirement is that you make sufficient academic progress, because the idea of the scholarship is to reward students who are on track with their studies. And there is, for example, as a requirement, complete a minimum of 55 credits of degree studies. So studies that are attached and related to your degree. So not any random studies that you might decide to do. The scholarship is granted to all students who satisfy the criteria. So in that sense, if you meet the criteria, you are granted the scholarship, provided you apply. And you will hear more about the instruction on how to apply if you were to get admitted later, when the application period is more relevant in the spring of your first academic year. But I think this was all when it comes to scholarships. So now, again, I give the floor to my colleague about the residence permits. I think there was, yes, one question still.
Yeah, so once again, when should I apply for the residence permit? Immediately. Immediately after getting your admission notification. So please be prepared. Please get all the necessary attachments. Please make sure that all the necessary funds are transferred to your account, and also make sure to make necessary arrangements for the insurance already before the beginning of April, so you can book an identification appointment and proceed with applying for the residence permit as soon as you can. So we would say April, beginning of May at the latest, because it can indeed take up to 5 or 6 months, and you need to be in Jyväskylä by the end of August to start your studies. So about the financial requirements, once again, it has to be at least 9,600 euro in your own personal bank account. I've noticed some questions in the Q&A, whether can it be, for example, your relative's bank account if they live in Eurozone? Unfortunately, no. If it's your brother's bank account, it's your brother who's using this, so this is not a proof that you will be able to use those money in Finland. So Migri needs to have a proof that you're the only one with exclusive right to use that money to make sure that they can grant you stay here in Finland. Sponsorship agreement is not accepted. The only way, if, for example, if some of your relatives sponsoring you, is if they actually transfer the money from the bank account to your own bank account, and then you provide the documents proving the origin of funds. For example, if it's your brother transferring this funds to your bank account, and your brother, for example, receive it from the salary, you would also need to have the salary statements. But again, the money has to be in your own bank account, in your own name. The only exception if you're moving together with your spouse, or if, for example, it's an underage child moving with the guardian, so they both are going to live in Finland and both are going to use money from the same bank account. Otherwise, exclusively your bank account. Everything else will not be accepted. And yeah, a few more words about the funds. Once again, it depends whether you have paid tuition fee by the moment you applied or whether you're yet to pay it. So you either have 9,600 euro in your account plus the document proving you have already paid tuition fee, or you need to have 9,600 euro plus the tuition fee amount for 1 year in your bank account when you apply. As for working during studies, this is also the question we receive very often. Legally, international students are allowed to work in Finland part-time with certain restrictions depending on nationality. However, first of all, your studies at JYU will be full-time studies. In Finland, it's not really common to combine full-time studies with job, unlike maybe in some other countries. The second thing is that job market is extremely competitive. There are quite high unemployment rates right now, and the part-time job market is almost, I would say it's almost impossible to get a job in that market right now, especially if you're an international student, because you will be competing against all Finnish students who have the benefit of also being proficient in Finnish language. And most all jobs, for example, will require that. And as of now in Jyväskylä, there are just simply no open positions for such things. So it's both immigration office requirement and our university recommendation that you check your financial matters before making a decision to move to Finland to make sure that you can actually afford living here in Finland, as it's quite expensive. Again, having at least 800 euro a month, assuming that you won't be able to earn this money, for example, during your first year of studies for your second year of studies. And same concerns the tuition fee. Even if you manage to find some short-time position here in Finland, the money you receive will not be enough to cover your tuition and living expenses for the second year. So this is quite a serious matter which you should take into consideration. All right, that's probably the most important matters regarding the residence permit. If you get admitted, we will of course provide you with more detailed guidance how to apply and about the requirements considering that. But that will be all from my side for now.
Okay, thank you. And then we have time for your questions. We have received a lot of your questions already. Thank you so much. And Yelisaveta and Elisa, do you have any other topics that you would like to highlight right now or answer live to our um, uh, applicants, prospective applicants?
Nothing specific. One question that I see recurring in the Q&A box, which is where I again remind, if you have questions, ask them in the Q&A, not in the chat, because we cannot follow both windows at the same time. But one recurring question is about using someone else's bank account. And I think Elisabeth already answered that, but just as a reminder, the bank account when applying for a residence permit has to be your own. It cannot be a relative or a sibling or anyone. It has to be an account in your name in order to be accepted by Migri. I see there's questions about translations and admission related stuff. So I think, Krista, you will go over those. Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, about the attachments and the attachment deadline, that is regarding all the attachments, including the language proficiency tests, possible GRE or GMAT tests, degree certificate, transcript, all. And let me go through some of the questions. And it is possible to apply up to 6 programs, both bachelor and master's degree programs. And some of you are asking whether or not your previous degree will give you eligibility to apply. So the basic rule is that if the degree gives you right to study in a master's degree in the country where the degree was awarded, it gives eligibility here at University of Jyväskylä as well. And then every program has a list of suitable fields, and you can see that list in the admission criteria. So check that list to know whether the field, the area of the topic of your studies is relevant enough to this specific program you want to apply for. And the language test must be valid until the end of no, I'm sorry, I forget, is it end of application period or attachment period? We will have to check this on the website. It's also it's mentioned there. And if there's any more questions that you have or something we didn't answer to yet, you can send us a message at admissions@jyu.fi, and we will help you further there. Good. But yeah, we all thank you for participating and see you soon.